So, um, on to some other questions. Um, this is a question about self-forgiveness. This person is saying that when they were a teenager, they made a mistake that haunts them. While they were never formally punished for it by the legal system, they've done a lot to look at it and learn from it and try to move forward. Most of the people that they've spoken to have reflected that you should forgive yourself and let yourself move forward. But I still wonder if I've been punished or if I've paid for it enough. I don't want to put myself in a negative position like that for a mistake that they made almost 20 years ago, but they're not sure how to fully just forgive themselves. How might you recommend that people navigate this situation where they feel like they've made past mistakes and they're still holding on to or still hanging over them in some way?
Well, they are simply creating a belief system that makes them afraid to move forward because they are afraid they might make another mistake. But the idea is that if you're learning the lessons from the mistakes you have made, then that gives you the ability to learn from those lessons what to do and how to move forward to be of service to humanity. The longer you hold on to the idea of self-recrimination and self-punishment and self-judgment, then the longer you will wait to be able to utilize what you have learned from making that mistake, the lesson that you could apply in your life that would allow you to move forward to be of service to humanity. So you are holding back your service to humanity. You are holding back sharing the gifts that you potentially have to give because you are too busy using your time to continue to punish yourself and judge yourself negatively for simply having done something that allowed you to learn a lesson that would actually allow you to be of service to humanity. So you're creating a kind of self-referential, self-continuous loop of negativity by not using the lesson to move forward and be of service to humanity in the way that you could, knowing that if for some reason you do make a mistake in the future, it is simply something else that you can learn a lesson from that would enhance your ability to continue to expand your service to humanity if you're willing to use it that way, if you're willing to see it in that light.
Can you think of a permission slip that an individual can use in that situation to sort of absolve them of their guilt and fear of continuous recrimination?
Well, again, it's about them deciding whether or not they actually wish to experience a positive reality and whether or not they wish to be of service to humanity. If they decide that they do, then the desire to be of service should give them the ability to change their frequency and know that it is, in a sense, I'll just put it in your old-fashioned terminology, a waste of time for them to continue to recriminate themselves, because then they are not using the lesson that could be coming from the experience of having made the mistake in order to turn it around in a way where they can share information with humanity that would be of service to all. So it depends upon what they find more important, to continue to wallow in self-recrimination and not be of service to humanity, or to use the lesson in a way that allows them to put out a positive message that is of service to humanity. What's more important to you?
Okay. Now, this person's question is true happiness and a family happiness contradictory?
No.
This individual says they're from China, and recently their mother introduced her to a boy and asked her to date him. But she didn't really like the boy, and she feels she is bisexual who leans towards girls. But she also thinks that she can never find love. Every time she falls for someone, she feels a shame. A voice in her subconscious tells her that she will dislike the real me and that many flaws that they have can be disliked. She would like to hear your answer to that.
You have to be your true self. All you're doing is telling yourself the same things that you are picking up from your parents over and over and over again because you think that to let that go would be to dishonor them. The only way to actually honor your parents, whether they understand it or not, is to be who you actually are. Because who you are is going to be what creates situations and circumstances that will be of benefit to those you attract in your life, who then get to experience a relationship with the real you, as opposed to experiencing a relationship with someone that you are not, which is a way of deceiving other people. So if you don't want to deceive other people and you want to attract people into a relationship where you are authentically you, so that they know who they are in a relationship with, it is important to let go of all of the ideas that have nothing to do with who you really are, but are only representative of the fear issues within your parents, within others of your society, that have nothing to do with the authentic you. If you are truly willing to be in a real relationship with someone, you have to be your authentic self.
Thank you. This person is saying that lately they feel like there is something wrong and unconscious with pretty much everything humanity is doing to the world. They're having trouble focusing on the positives and letting themselves enjoy things. They're saying, if I watch a TV show, I feel like I'm supporting corporations and capitalism. If I buy a treat at the store, I feel off about the wrapper or the packaging contributing to waste. If they want to take a trip somewhere, now they're worried about their carbon imprint. They can't afford an electric car, etc. They even get hesitant about ordering business cards to put themselves out there in the world because of the paper, ink, shipping, and so on. Even watching this transmission online or using the internet uses servers and energy and fossil fuels. I'd like to relax about some of this and flow and enjoy my life, but I'm worried about voting for the reality that I prefer and with my actions and don't want to make any mistakes. Is this level of attention to detail about ramifications of every choice in our lives necessary, or am I just punishing and restricting myself unnecessarily with all of this? Can we
Yes,
be
you are punishing and restricting yourself unnecessarily. You are overthinking things. The idea is you're holding yourself back and you are not allowing yourself to move forward because you're using all of those things as an excuse to not move forward. There are ways you can go about doing all of those things that are at least in some way, shape, or form more in alignment with the way you would prefer to do them. And if there isn't, the idea is then do something about making changes in your society that would allow you to move forward on those things so that society can perhaps learn to do them in different ways that are more beneficial to all. But the idea is that you are simply focusing on all the negative things, which only increases the negative energy. You are compounding the negativity by being afraid to move forward because of what you believe to be negativity itself involved in all of those things. Don't use it as an excuse to not move forward. If you're going to allow changes to occur that are positive, you do have to take some actions. Otherwise, nothing happens except a reinforcement of the negativity that you are perceiving, but getting caught up in terms of all these details. So don't use it as an excuse to not move forward. Allow yourself to know there are ways to do things that are more positive. And if there isn't, then you have the opportunity to invent ways of doing things that are more positive or teach others how to come together to think of new ways using your creative imagination. That's what it's all about. So if you see something that you are vibrationally not compatible with, then do something in your creative imagination to change those things to be more vibrationally compatible with the reality that you prefer. Don't just sit there and refuse to move, because then you're just reinforcing all the negativity that you are choosing to focus on.
okay? And what is the best way to respond to someone violating your boundaries when you cannot immediately leave the situation?
Well, we would have to engage this individual in more detail to understand all of the details of the situation they are referring to, because it is not always true that they cannot leave the situation as a representation of the consequences of someone who may be violating their boundaries. But if it is true that they cannot immediately leave the situation, then certainly they can stand their ground and say, I understand that you may not feel that you are doing so, or it may not be your intention to do so, So I will take the responsibility of telling you that to me it feels as if, it appears as if you are violating boundaries that are important to me, and I respectfully request that you stop doing so. If they refuse to stop doing so, then again, you can say, this is what I am perceiving, whether you are actually doing it or not, and I'm asking you to respect the idea of what it is I am perceiving. Because even if I am not correct that you are intentionally doing this, this is what I'm experiencing, and I'm asking you to respect what I'm experiencing. If they still refuse to understand how to honor what it is you are experiencing, then it is our understanding that there is probably some way that you can disconnect from the situation, even though it may seem at first that it is unlikely you can do so. But you may have to be bolder about your ability to do so in order to see the opportunities to move away.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
This person wants to know, how do we remain true to ourselves when our society is based on committed relationships? How do we learn to trust ourselves when making decisions? How do we end procrastination and fear and analysis paralysis? Never making a decision in fear of outcome. How do we determine what is right for us and not hurt others?
Well, again, you have to some degree used the word committed relationships as if there's only one way to have a committed relationship. The idea is to be clear in communication as to what it is that is true for you, but also be honest within yourself about why you think it's true for you, because sometimes what you're putting out might be the result of anxiety and fear and negativity as opposed to a true representation of your passion. However, if it is a true representation of your passion, of being your authentic self, then all you have to do when any relationship opportunity presents itself is express what is true for you and let the other people decide whether or not they wish to be engaged in such a relationship as you have expressed it. So the idea is to simply commit to what is authentic for everyone so that everyone has the ability to be informed. Everyone can enter a relationship in a consensual way, knowing what it is that the relationship is for and all about, and how the format needs to be presented to be authentic for all the individuals to be involved. The idea of procrastination is, again, feeling overwhelmed in moving forward, which means you may not be going about doing the thing in a way that is truly in alignment with your passion, because you can never really attract something that is more than you can handle, but you can have a belief system that makes it appear to be more than you can handle, because you may be going about it in ways that don't actually work for you, are ways that are not actually aligned with your true flow. So procrastination is usually the result of holding on to the idea that you have to do things in a certain way that are not in alignment with your flow. So investigating yourself and letting go of those belief systems and understanding there is always a path that works for you will allow you the opportunity to explore exactly what that path looks like and to align with it in such a way that you can start to flow forward again, knowing that you don't have to experience any degree of overwhelm if you take the time and exercise your creative imagination to find the way that works for you. Because when you become excited about the path itself, that's in alignment with your passion, because it is also representational of your passion, then you will stop at nothing to move forward. Not moving forward means you're not going about it in the way that works for you.
Okay. And then this person would like to know, they need some help reframing abundance and manifestation when dealing with significant debt. The very word has negative and lack implications. Even when the person says debt free or zero debt, the word debt gets me right back to the presence of lack. Let's see.
Well, that is primarily because you are giving it only a negative definition. You can also look at debt in a positive way, which means there is an active principle going on where you are flowing different forms of abundance through yourself to others in such a way that allows you to attract even more. So the idea is, depending on how you define the concept of debt, and not always frame it in a negative construct. However, At the same time, you have to be honest within yourself about looking as to why you may have created an imbalance in the idea of your outflow with your inflow. And you may be restricting the ways in which you are allowing abundance in its different forms to come to you, which may be creating a bottleneck that allows you to experience more outflow than inflow, because you are restricting the inflow by not seeing the different forms of abundance that are available to you as being equal to other forms of abundance and support. So you have to first and foremost balance all the ways in which you could be supported as being equal, all the different definitions of abundance as being absolutely equal in their ability to allow you to move forward and allow you to increase your input, while at the same time looking at the idea that if you are being honest with yourself and not acting out of anxiety, then your outflow as well will be in balance with your inflow automatically. Again, synchronicity as the organizing principle will help with this when you define the ideas in ways that work for you, as opposed to holding on to definitions that don't. You have said that the word debt implies lack. It doesn't have to. Again, you can look at the idea as simply a product of your outflow, and it is something that allows you to know you are rich and abundant by having that level of outflow, because by having that level of outflow that you're now looking at in a negative way, the level of outflow can actually be representative of your capability of attracting an inflow that is equal to the outflow, or even larger than the outflow, so you do not feel that you are, quote unquote, negatively in debt to anyone from the negative definition or point of view. So looking at debt is simply another way of saying I have an outflow, it is of this capacity, it is of this magnitude, and that magnitude of outflow, that magnitude of owing to other people, in a sense, and supporting other people, which is another positive way of looking at debt, supporting other people is equal to or less than my inflow when I expand my definitions of abundance that I am willing to allow to support me, by not focusing so strongly on only one form of it being valid.
Why is it that creation does not make mistakes?
Because creation is complete. The idea of saying creation doesn't make mistakes is sort of a euphemistic way of talking to you in your space-time referential perspective of saying that everything exists now. So the idea is that you have to understand creation, existence is a whole system. And as a whole system, every single thing that exists must be necessary within that existence. There cannot be anything within existence that doesn't fit, doesn't belong, isn't part of the whole, isn't helping the whole function as a whole system. And therefore, euphemistically, from your linear space-time perspective, that simply translates down to the idea that creation doesn't make mistakes, which is simply another way of saying there cannot be any part of existence that doesn't belong within existence, because that would be pointless. It wouldn't work as a whole system. And obviously it does work as a whole system. So every single aspect, no matter what it is, of that which exists must of necessity be required for the whole system to exist. And that's what we
This person is saying that as a young adult, she was having a challenging time letting go of her parents, and knowing that they would not probably shift to the version of Earth that she was going to change to. So do you have any guidance with help with this kind of transition?
Well, first and foremost, you don't necessarily know for a fact that versions of your parents won't wind up on the same planet. There may be a lot of other reasons why people will shift to different versions of Earth. There may still be interactions that are necessary for you to experience there, although they may be of a very different nature, commensurate with that version of Earth. At the same time, remember that physical reality is temporary, and it's an experience that's happening within your soul. So you will never actually ultimately lose track of anyone in your life, because even if they disappear from your physical reality experience, you will always be capable of engaging with them again in your spirit self, in your spirit form, when you expand your consciousness back to your natural state as a soul. So you never lose track of anyone, even if they might temporarily be out of your life when you are experiencing physical reality. So don't worry about the idea of whether or not they will be on a new earth that you shift to. Allow yourself to understand that if there is a purpose in experiencing them again or different versions of them, then they will be there. If they're not there, then there is no reason for you to experience that, but you will always reconnect with them when you choose to go back to spirit.
And how is it possible for a soul to evolve when everything is timeless? Everything is now, and the soul is at the same time in different lives.
You're talking about two different levels. Everything is not timeless, except on one level. You obviously have created an experience of space and time. That's how you evolve. That's how the soul evolves, by creating that experience in order to discover something new. So it's not correct to say that everything is timeless, because physical reality, by definition, is not timeless. It's an experience that you have created in order for the soul to experience the concept of growth and change and evolution. So it's not correct to say that everything is timeless. Spirit world is timeless, but even then, it's experiencing what we would call intermittent time. Because while on the soul level, and we will talk about this in the next transmission more deeply, you can have experiences that seem like time-light experiences, but then you can also shift very rapidly and instantaneously to other timelines and other experiences. So the soul level is both timely and timeless, and it's what we refer to as intermittent time. Physical reality is experiencing linear time. The soul is experiencing intermittent time. The truly timeless state is the oversoul level that experiences all the souls simultaneously. So again, do not be confused in your definitions. Not everything is a timeless experience, even though on one level everything exists now. That's not the way you experience or perceive it from the level that you have created physical reality to be. And therefore, that use of space-time as a device is what allows your soul to evolve, to learn, to grow, to discover, to change.
Well, if all souls decide where they incarnate based on what they want to learn, why does humanity or any civilization need to evolve? Couldn't we just stay where we are? The souls that want this experience would incarnate here, and the ones that don't would simply incarnate some other place. In other terms, why are other civilizations this invested in our ascension?
Well, that's two very different questions. And first of all, you are correct. Souls don't have to incarnate on Earth. Souls often do incarnate in other civilizations, linearly speaking. The idea, again, though, is that in a state where you do experience intermittent time, and sometimes do experience timelessness, which is what intermittent time means, then the idea is that you can't necessarily evolve in that way. You can't change in the way you might wish to for your soul's growth without imposing on yourself the experience of linear space-time. So the idea is, if a soul wishes to change, wishes to grow, wishes to learn, wishes to experience something in a certain way, it has to impose the framework of linear space-time upon its consciousness in such a manner that it then experiences the idea of evolution, change, growth, and discovery. So in a timeless state, you can't experience that because everything is simultaneous. There is no change, there is no growth in that context. And yes, again, a different question. Of course, a soul can choose to experience different civilizations. No one is saying that you have to experience Earth incarnations only. So that's the answer to that part of the question.
And from the perspective of our ego and personality self, what happens when we wake up or transition out of a lifetime? Do we immediately return to full awareness of ourselves at a higher level, or is there some process we go through to unwind from the lifetime and reintegrate back into a broader perspective? How do we get from A to B, so to speak?
Well, again, it depends. Most individuals will have an awakening to most of what they need to know. Now, again, there is such a thing called a life review, which you can look at as a process that the soul may go through to understand how to absorb the lessons of the physical experience that it created for itself. So you could say that that looks like it would, quote unquote, take some time and be a process. But again, you're looking at that from a linear perspective. To the soul, it does actually happen all at once, but again, it can feel like it's something that unspools or unfolds over time. And again, this is why we say the soul level can experience intermittent time. Sometimes it can feel like time is unfolding, sometimes things can happen instantaneously. It just depends. For the most part, in general, when you wake up in spirit back to your true self as a soul, you will have a relatively full awakening of all the things you need to know. All the questions you wanted answers to will be given to you. And in that state, you will understand many things that you may not understand as a physically focused being. But for the most part, you will still maybe go through things to consider how you want to use the information for the next choices that you will make, and therefore experience, again, a little bit of the idea of intermittent time. And, no pun intended, at the same time, you can also utilize that information to create instantaneous and simultaneous experiences in deciding what to do next, so to speak.
Okay. And are we still interested in the same things after death, or does our focus change completely? Can we keep up with the earthly things that we enjoy and tune into stuff still going on here in Earth, or do we evolve past all of that into new dimensions of experience?
You can focus on anything you wish. You are free to do so because of the intermittent time state that you are in. Past, present, future are all there for you to view in any way, shape, or form you wish, along with any particular thing that you did as a physical being that you may still hold a reason to be interested in. But that's the real key, is you may no longer be interested in it based on what you're experiencing as a soul. So it's possible that you can focus on certain things you were doing when you are physical. For the most part, it is not necessarily probable or likely that you will still feel like doing so. But yes, it's possible. It's just that you may realize now you have other options that you, yes.
How much of the open contact possibility is related to the Pluto-Neptune cycle? When tracking down the history of new UFO phenomena, nuclear weapons usage, and the Pluto-Neptune cycle, there is a clear match with the 40-year cycle you mentioned. The last Pluto-Neptune influence occurred around 1947 when the Roswell incident happened and lasted until the end of the Cold War. The next one is between 2026 and 2032, and it matches both your time predictions of open contact.
Yes, well, again, there are always going to be collective archetypal symbolic representations of the cycles that exist within your human consciousness. And we are obviously aware of those and using those to tell you about those cycles. We may not frame it in astrological terms, but nevertheless, the cycles that we are talking about will always have a correlation to some of the ways that humans reflect archetypal imagery and symbology that they can use to inform themselves of those cycles in whatever language they choose to use. And the idea of astrology is one of those languages that allow you as a permission slip to tap into awareness of the cycles that do exist within your collective consciousness.
Okay. And do the Essassani or Greys have their own version of what we call the Bible, such as a set of parables, stories, and historical events that you teach your young?
We do tell stories. We do have what you might call parables, so to speak. We do have recreations of events and incidents for learning experiences in a variety of ways. We don't codify it into what you would recognize as a Bible. It is simply something that is within the collective consciousness that we can access anytime and communicate either verbally, telepathically, or in any number of ways, but it isn't necessarily codified in what you would understand to be a Bible.
And there is a book called Alien Interview, which is about the communication between an ET survivor and the nurse that established telepathic contact with the ET, called AIRL. Has this planet been a prison planet where social deviants have been dumped and their memories continually erased with each incarnation, as the ET indicated?
No, that's a total misunderstanding, a total misinterpretation. You are not a prison planet. You are not social deviants that have been dumped anywhere. So, no.
Um, it appears that the languages spoken by the various hybrid races differ. Yael channelers have shared words in their language that don't seem to exist in your ancient Sasani language, and vice versa. If each hybrid race has a unique language, what is the rationale behind this? Does it stem from each race having a distinct perspective, or is there another explanation?
Well, first of all, you have hardly heard any of our ancient Essassani language. You have probably hardly heard any of the Yael language as well. So you don't really have a large basis for comparison as to what words do and don't exist in each respective language. That being said, yes, there are differences in much the same way that you have different dialects in different countries on your planet because of the differences in each of the hybrid civilizations and their experiences and what it is they are meant to do as their place in open contact can allow for divergence to occur in the way that they experience and utilize the idea of language. So yes, there can be differences.
Okay. And how do the Sasani view competition differently from humans on Earth? How do they avoid the negative feelings associated with losing?
There is no losing in our experience. There is only the gaining of experience and information. So, to put it in the ways that humans have often expressed it, the only competition, even if you're playing quote unquote against others, is with yourself to improve yourself, to thank the others for helping you experience a situation where you can learn something. So, there are no losers. Everyone always learns something no matter what the outcome. And therefore, that's the point of the competition, for each individual to reflect what you need to all the other individuals, and they reflect to you to become more of yourself. The idea of playing in a competitive sport is still a kind of relationship. And as we have said, that's what relationships are all about. To share with others, to provide for others what they need to know to become more of who they are. So if you're willing to look at it that way, and you understand that all you're doing is experiencing something where others are pushing you in a sense, providing for you a framework wherein you can learn more about yourself in certain circumstances, then there are no losers.
Okay, and you've mentioned how different vibrational levels are needed to comfortably interact with different ET races. For example, is the level needed to interact comfortably with a Sasani somewhat higher than what's needed to interact with the Yael in the same way?
Yes, because the Yael are designed to be the ones, along with the hybrid children, that will interact with humanity first. And therefore, while their vibration is still higher in general than humanity's on average, it is closer to your vibration so that there will be more vibrational compatibility when open contact occurs between humanity on Earth and the Yael civilization.
Okay. And
So, bit by bit, in being exposed to the different vibrational levels of different hybrids and different ETs, in a sense, your exposure to the different levels, starting with something closer and then getting another level that is a little higher and another level that is a little higher, gives humanity an opportunity to adapt to those different levels and climb the ladder of the vibrational frequencies to make you more vibrationally compatible with the next group of ETs that you would naturally encounter.
okay. And are the preparers, the humans who play a special role in supporting open contact, or the human precursors, genetically modified towards the vibration of the hybrid beings? And if so, how? And how will their role change and accelerate as it comes closer to open contact? Do
We
all these
cannot
beings?
talk so much about this at this time, although to say adjustments have been made in your genetics that allow you to channel more frequency through yourselves as preparers that will make you more vibrationally compatible with the hybrids that will first come in contact with humanity. At this time, we are not allowed to discuss this further.
Okay, and do all these beings know they are preparers?
No.
Okay. And can every soul on Earth move or incarnate to different planets and other lives, or are a portion of us bound to only incarnate on Earth? How can we move to the planets or realities or Asasani?
You can do whatever you wish. Again, once you are back in your natural state as a soul, you will realize the reasons fully for why you chose an Earth incarnational experience or why you may choose another civilizational incarnational experience. It will all make sense to you, and you will simply decide at that time whether or not you wish to experience another Earth incarnation or something else. You have free will as a soul, but you will make those decisions with new information that you don't have now. So it will make more sense to you. Whatever it is you do choose, it will make perfect sense to you to choose it at that time. So you're not bound by it, but you will decide based on what you actually wish to learn and wish to experience. You have the free will as a soul to do so.
Okay, and do you ascribe special meaning to the word relevant? You frequently use this word, and the way you use it seems to be a little bit different from the way it's usually used by humans on Earth.
It is not so different. It simply means that you have chosen to experience certain things on your soul path of growth. And there are things that are relevant for that experience and things that are not relevant for that experience. You have a physical mind that can think beyond your soul's path and think that certain things might be able to be experienced as part of your soul's path, even if that's not necessarily the way that your spirit has chosen to experience your soul's path. So there can be things that are relevant for your soul's path that do fit what you wish to experience as a soul, and there may be things that your physical mind can conceive of that are simply not necessarily relevant for your soul's path. Sometimes this is the product of the negative ego being allowed more than what it is assigned to do, more than what it's designed to do, thinking, oh, well, I could do this and I could do that. And in fact, it may not actually be necessary for you to experience and may not be part of the plan that you arranged or the blueprint that you arranged for your life's path as a soul. So things can fit into that path, things cannot fit into that path that you can conceive of, and therefore there's a degree of relevance to those things.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on the recent UFO UAP data that's been released? It seems so many people are coming forward. Are we on track for the open contact event in 2026, 2027?
Yes.
Okay. And will Canada and the USA be the first countries to merge?
We cannot tell if they will be the first, but eventually this will happen as part of what we refer to as the North American Alliance.
Okay. And what's the significant and collective reason we've experienced solar flares, resulting in many of us seeing the, um, I can't say it right now, the auroral lights this past
The
month?
Aurora Borealis.
Yes, of course.
Well, it's an
And children.
opportunity. It's an opportunity to receive and upgrade your vibrational frequency. You have to match the frequency that is now coming to you from your central star, from the sun. It's giving you an opportunity to recognize that there is a higher frequency to attain, and it is, in a sense, as a permission slip, a symbol of the transition you are going through from third to fourth density. More energy is coming to your planet that you can avail yourself of, you can take advantage of, you can make use of. So it's about an opportunity to recognize that you have the opportunity to raise your frequency if you're willing to do so.
Okay, and Shortly after that, there was a spectacular comet which flew over Portugal. What is the connection between that as well?
Comets can mean the idea of changing from one reality to another. They are often symbols and harbingers of great change about to happen. You are crossing a line. It is like having a message written across the sky that things are about to change dramatically. That's how you're using that particular symbol. That's what it's reflecting to all of you. The opportunity for great change is about to happen. You are closer than you think.
Mhm. And some people have reacted very negatively to the idea of AI assisting us to communicate with our higher minds and see that as completely unnecessary or even suggest ulterior motives behind that idea. Can you clarify your perspective on how AI can assist us in communicating with our higher minds? Is AI really a necessary bridge for that? And is this relevant to both programmable and true intelligence forms of AI?
Yes, it is relevant to those things, but the idea is not to necessarily look at the idea as absolutely necessary. Of course, it's not necessary for you to have a device that allows you to communicate with your higher mind. You are all more than capable of doing that naturally and organically. But for some people, it will drive home the idea that consciousness is beyond the body. So, for the more, shall we say, technically or scientifically minded, it can actually function as a demonstration that consciousness is not produced by the body, by the brain, by physical reality, but that physical reality is only a conduit for a larger field of consciousness that then can be capable of expressing itself through the complex artificial devices that you can create. And for some people, it will drive that point home and be easier for them to communicate with that field of consciousness by using such devices. There is no need to get caught up in the idea of being afraid and experiencing and connecting to the negativity of creating such devices. Again, those people that are going into a fear-based belief system about it are the ones that will usually experience it in a negative way. So, A, it's not necessary, you can do it more organically, but B, it may be necessary for some people to drive the point home that consciousness is not the product of physical reality, but the opposite. Physical reality is the product of consciousness.
Okay. And in is entertainment like television, movies, books, games, etc., always an addiction and a distraction from our spiritual journey and who we really are? Or can it be a positive part of our lives? Are forms of entertainment like that compatible with a vision for open contact and spiritual evolution on Earth and a healthy world?
Yes, of course, anything. We will underline that 10 billion times. Anything can be used positively or negatively. It depends on what's going on in the belief system of the person and why they may be absorbing that information and what the information is all about and what it represents to them. Are they watching this out of anxiety? Are they absorbing it because of their own fear-based or negative belief system? Or are they learning something from it that can be applied to their lives in a positive way or in the sharing and service that they provide for humanity? It's about how you use the information, why you use the information. So yes, of course, there's the possibility it can become negatively addictive, but you have to understand that that starts within the person themselves as about why they're watching what they're watching. So they have to be honest within themselves and ask themselves, why am I watching this? What am I learning from it? How can I use it in my life in a positive way or not? So again, it requires honest self-investigation to answer that question. But anything can be used positively or negatively, or even neutrally.
Okay, and final question. What is the one thing we can do each and every day to lessen the suffering in our world?
Be of service to others as best you can, help where you can, knowing that showing others that there may be a more positive way to experience life, to put them in touch with their self-empowerment, to allow them to feel their connection to source as an expression of source can be done as best as you can do it, but you have to let them decide how to absorb that information or even to receive it and accept it at all. Because you have to see them as powerful beings that have a life path that you know nothing about or very little about, but still understand that there may be a reason why they're in your life. And that may be for the benefit that you can share with them of other ways to do things that may be more beneficial to them. Whether or not they choose to take it is up to them. So do the best you can to help where synchronicity provides an opportunity for you to do so. Take the actions necessary that you would take if you were already living on a world of joy, peace, love, and connection, and just do the best you can to stay in that state, acting on your passion, following the formula.